The crystal station floated in the darkness of space like a jewel among the stars. Luminar Prime was the most beautiful place in the known galaxy. Its walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue and purple light. Its halls were wide enough for 1,000 beings to walk side by side. Tonight, those halls were filled with the most powerful creatures from 100 different worlds. Ambassador Telvik stood at the center of the great gala hall and watched his guests with pride. He was a Valoran, a tall and thin creature with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His people had built this station 3,000 years ago. Every 50 cycles, they hosted the Galactic Gala here. It was the greatest diplomatic event in the universe. Telvix looked around the room. He saw the Fenari delegates with their soft fur and gentle voices. He saw the Corvani floating in their water spheres, their tentacles waving slowly. He saw the Mithroni with their forearms and their robes made of woven light. All of them were peaceful. All of them were civilized. All of them had evolved on paradise worlds with low gravity, mild weather, and no predators. This was how intelligent life was supposed to be. Gentle, thoughtful, fragile. The music played softly. Servants moved through the crowd carrying drinks that sparkled like liquid stars. Delegates talked about trade and art and the future of their worlds. Everything was perfect. Then the alarms began to scream. Talvix felt his heart stop. The soft blue lights turned red. The music died. 1,000 voices fell silent at once. On the great viewing screen above the hall, the darkness of space was suddenly filled with ships. Dozens of ships. Hundreds of ships. They were ugly things, made of black metal and covered with weapons. They surrounded the station like hungry animals around wounded prey. The Kraxen had come. Telvix knew them. Everyone knew them. The Kraxen were insectoid creatures with hard shells and many legs. They did not trade. They did not negotiate. They took what they wanted. They had been exiled from galactic society 200 years ago for their crimes. They were slavers. They were killers. They were monsters. A face appeared on the viewing screen. It was Warlord Skrix, the leader of the Kraxen fleet. His head was covered in dark armor. His eyes were red and cold. When he spoke, his voice was like metal scraping against metal. "Attention, Luminor Prime," Skrix said. "You are surrounded. Your weapons are weak. Your shields will not hold. You have 1 standard hour to surrender all delegates as hostages. If you refuse, we will destroy the station and everyone inside it. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy." The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the screaming began. Delegates ran in all directions. Some fell to the floor and cried. Others called for help on their communication devices, but there was no help coming. The nearest Allied fleet was 3 days away. The station's own defenses were meant for small threats, not an entire war fleet. Telvik stood frozen. His mind raced. There had to be something. There had to be someone. Then he remembered. 3 months ago, a scout ship had returned from the outer reaches of the galaxy with strange news. They had found a new species. These creatures called themselves humans. They came from a world called Earth. At first, the scout had thought Earth was uninhabitable. It was a Class 12 death world. Its gravity was crushing. Its weather was violent. Its oceans were full of monsters. Its land was covered with predators. Everything on that planet seemed designed to kill. But somehow life had evolved there anyway. And somehow that life had become intelligent. The humans had not just survived on their death world. They had conquered it. They had spread across their planet and then into the stars. The scout had described them as terrifying. They were dense with muscle. They could survive wounds that would kill any other species. They could run for hours without stopping. They could see in the dark. They could eat almost anything. They were the most dangerous things the scout had ever seen, but they were also strange. They smiled. They laughed. They helped the scout repair his damaged ship. They gave him food and water. They asked about his home and his family. They seemed kind. The scout had said something that Telvix remembered now. He had said that humans did not separate their warriors from their healers. On Earth, the same person who would kill to protect you would also carry you to safety and tend your wounds. They called it being a soldier. Telvix had thought it was primitive. Now he prayed it was true. He ran to the communication center. His assistants followed him, their thin legs shaking with fear. The Kraxon had blocked most signals, but there was an old emergency frequency. It was designed to reach anyone, anywhere. It had never been used. Telvix activated it with trembling hands. "This is Ambassador Telvix of the Valoran Sovereignty," he said. His voice shook. "We are under attack at Luminor Prime. Thousands of innocent delegates are being held hostage. We are requesting immediate humanitarian aid from any species able to respond. Please, we need help." He sent the signal toward the distant sector where the humans lived. Then he fell into a chair and waited. In the gala hall, the delegates huddled together. Kraxon soldiers had already boarded the station. They marched through the corridors with their weapons ready. They were taking positions around the hall. They looked at the soft, frightened aliens and laughed their clicking laugh. Ambassador Telvix did not know if his signal would reach Earth. He did not know if the humans would come. He did not know what kind of help they would bring, but he knew one thing. If help did not come soon, everyone in this station would either be taken as slaves or killed. He looked out the window at the Kraxon ships. Their weapons glowed with terrible power. Their hulls were thick with armor. They had enough firepower to destroy a small moon. What could anyone do against that? On a small blue planet very far away, a signal arrived. A general with scars on his face read the message. He smiled a cold smile. Then he reached for his communication device and said 2 words. "Wake them." The message traveled across the stars at impossible speed. It passed dead planets and burning suns. It crossed the empty darkness between galaxies. And finally, after 7 hours, it reached a small blue world on the edge of known space. Earth. From orbit, it looked peaceful. White clouds floated over blue oceans and green land. But anyone who knew the truth would not be fooled. This world was a killer. Its gravity was 3 times stronger than most inhabited planets. Its weather could destroy cities. Its oceans hid creatures that could swallow ships whole. Its land was covered with predators that had been perfecting the art of killing for millions of years. And yet, somehow, humans had not only survived here, they had become the most dangerous thing on the entire planet. General Kang. Doyen received the message in his office at United Terran Response Command. He was 62 years old. His hair was gray. His face was marked with scars from 3 different wars. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt. He had led the defense against the Korathi invasion. He had walked into the burning ruins of New Sol and carried survivors out on his back. He read the message twice. Then he read it a 3rd time. Hostage situation. Thousands of innocent beings. Enemies with overwhelming force. Request for humanitarian aid. Doyen smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a wolf that had just found its prey. He pressed a button on his desk. "Get me Obsidian Division," he said. "Tell them to be ready in 30 minutes. Cross the planet." 5 people received the call. Captain Park Ji-won was in the middle of a training exercise when her device buzzed. She was 34 years old, with sharp eyes and black hair tied back in a tight bun. She had been a soldier since she was 18. She had led more rescue missions than she could count. Some people called her cold because she never seemed to panic. But she was not cold. She simply knew that panic got people killed. She read the message and immediately began walking toward the transport bay. Her team would meet her there. Lieutenant Yoon Tai-woo was lifting weights when his device buzzed. He was built like a mountain, with shoulders so wide he had to turn sideways to walk through some doors. He could carry equipment that weighed more than most aliens. He could punch through metal walls. He looked terrifying, but his friends knew he had the gentlest heart. He loved children and animals and old songs from his grandmother's village. He put down the weights and began to run. Sergeant Buchanan was in the medical bay, reviewing new treatment protocols. She was the team's combat medic. She could heal wounds with her hands or cause them. She had been hit by plasma fire, acid spray, and kinetic rounds. She was still here. Her body was covered with scars that she wore with pride. Each one was proof that she had survived something that should have killed her. She grabbed her medical kit and her weapons and headed for the door. Corporal Nosung was sleeping when his device buzzed. He was the smallest member of the team, which meant he was only slightly larger than most alien species. He was quiet. He was fast. He could move through darkness without making a sound. Enemies called him a ghost. He never corrected them. He opened his eyes, read the message, and disappeared into the shadows. Private First Class Shin Mira was playing a video game when her device buzzed. She was the youngest member of the team, only 23 years old. She did not look like a soldier. She looked like a university student, but her mind was sharper than any blade. She could hack into any computer system. She could break any code. She could turn an enemy's own weapons against them. She saved her game, picked up her equipment, and walked out of her room. 30 minutes later, they all stood in the briefing room. General Kung Doyan looked at them with pride. These were his best. These were the ones he sent when failure was not an option. Here's the situation, he said. He activated a holographic display. Luminar Prime Station. Approximately 4,000 alien delegates from 100 species. They are being held hostage by a Kraxan war fleet. The Kraxan have approximately 200 ships. They have demanded unconditional surrender. If they do not get it, they will destroy the station. How many Kraxan soldiers on the station? Captain Jawan asked. Unknown. Estimate between 200 and 500. Time until their deadline? Approximately 9 hours. Lieutenant Taiwu cracked his knuckles. That is plenty of time, General Kong continued. The aliens sent a request for humanitarian aid. They do not understand what that means on Earth. They think we will send negotiators or supplies. He paused. We are going to send you. Sergeant Hannah smiled. It was not a nice smile. Do we have rules of engagement? One rule, General Kong said. Protect the hostages. Everything else is acceptable. Corporal Sung spoke for the first time. His voice was soft. What about the alien delegates? Will they be prepared for us? General Kong shook his head. No. They have never seen humans in combat. They have never seen a Death World species at war. They will be terrified of the Kraxan. Private Myra asked. Of you? There was silence in the room. Then Captain Jiwon nodded. Then we will show them they have nothing to fear from us. We will save them. We will heal their wounded. We will repair their station. She paused. And we will kill every Kraxan who stands in our way. General Kong stood. Your transport is the assault carrier, Hammerfall. It is fast enough to reach Luminar Prime in 8 hours. You will arrive before the deadline. He looked at each of them. I am sending 5 soldiers against a fleet. Most commanders would call that suicide. I call it overkill. The team stood and saluted. 20 minutes later, the Hammerfall launched from Earth's surface. It climbed through the atmosphere, past the orbital stations, past the moon. Then it engaged its hyperspace drive and vanished in a flash of light. Inside the ship, Captain Jawan checked her weapons. Lieutenant Taiwu reviewed the station blueprints. Sergeant Hannah prepared her medical supplies. Corporal Soon meditated in silence. Private Myra ran tests on her hacking equipment. None of them were afraid. They had been born on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had evolved to fight. They had trained to protect. They were going into a battle against impossible odds, and they were calm, because this was what humans did. This was what they had always done. They fought. They protected. They survived, and those who threatened the innocent learned why Earth was called a death world. 8 hours had passed since the Kraxan fleet surrounded Luminor Prime. Inside the Great Gala Hall, 4,000 alien delegates sat in terrified silence. Kraxan soldiers stood guard at every door. Their weapons were pointed at the crowd. Their red eyes watched everything. Ambassador Telvik sat against a crystal pillar. His blue skin had turned pale. He had not eaten or slept since the attack began. He kept looking at his communication device, hoping for a response to his distress signal. But there was nothing. No one was coming. Warlord Scrix walked among the hostages like a predator through a field of prey. He was the largest Kraxan any of them had ever seen. His shell was black as midnight. His claws could cut through steel. When he spoke, even his own soldiers flinched. "You have 30 minutes left," Scrix announced. His voice echoed through the hall. "After that, I will begin executing hostages. One every 5 minutes. We will start with the Valorans." He looked directly at Telvix. "Your people built this station. It seems right that your blood should be the first to stain its floors." Telvix closed his eyes. This was the end. Help was not coming. Nobody could reach them in time. Nobody would risk war with the Kraxan over a few thousand diplomats. Then the station shook. It was a small tremor at first, then another. Then the lights flickered. The Kraxan soldiers looked around in confusion. Warlord Scrix grabbed his communication device. "Report," he demanded. "What is happening?" The response was frantic. "Warlord, a ship just exited hyperspace. It came out directly in front of the flagship. Impossible close. Our sensors did not detect its approach." "One ship." Scrix laughed. "Destroy it." There was a pause. Then the voice returned, and this time it was afraid. "Warlord, the ship is not responding to our weapons. Its hull is too dense. Our plasma cannons are not penetrating." Before Scrix could respond, a new voice filled the communication channel. It was broadcast on all frequencies, so everyone on the station and every ship in the fleet could hear it. The voice was female. It was calm. It was human. This is Captain Park Juan of Tehran Obsidian Division, responding to distress beacon. "Hostile forces, you have 30 seconds to withdraw. This is your only warning." Scrix stared at his device. Then he began to laugh. The other Kraxan soldiers laughed with him. One ship? One small, strange vessel against 200 warships? The humans were clearly insane. "Human," Scrix said, "I have enough firepower to destroy a planet. You have one tiny ship. I will give you 30 seconds to run away before I turn you into dust." The human voice did not respond. 20 seconds passed, then 10. Then the 30 seconds were over. The viewing screen in the gala hall lit up with fire. The tiny human ship moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen. It spun and dodged with impossible speed. Its weapons fired in rapid bursts, each shot precise and deadly. In 12 seconds, 3 Kraxan destroyers were burning. Their hulls had been punctured. Their engines were dead. Escape pods launched in all directions. The delegates watched in shock. The Kraxan soldiers watched in horror. Warlord Scrix screamed orders. His fleet opened fire with everything they had. Thousands of plasma bolts and missiles and energy beams flew toward the tiny human ship. It should have been destroyed 100 times over, but it was not there. The ship moved through the barrage like water through rocks. It rolled and twisted and dove in ways that should have been impossible. Inside that ship, the human crew was experiencing forces that would have killed any other species. Valoran bodies would have been crushed. Fenari bones would have shattered. Even Kraxan would have blacked out, but the humans just kept flying. "What are they?" One of the Fenari delegates whispered. Nobody answered. Nobody knew. The battle lasted for minutes. In that time, the single human ship destroyed or disabled 9 Kraxan vessels. It took no damage. It never slowed down. And then, when it had created an opening in the enemy formation, it did something unexpected. It flew directly toward the station. "They are attacking us," Telvix gasped. But they were not attacking. The ship matched speed with the station and locked onto its hull. Then 5 small pods launched from its underside. The pods flew toward the station at terrifying speed. They did not slow down. They hit the station's outer hull and punched through like fists through paper. Emergency alarms screamed. Bulkheads slammed shut. The delegates screamed in terror. "They're breaching the hull!" A Corvani shouted. "They are killing us." But Telvix watched the screens carefully. The pods had not hit random locations. They had hit precise points near the gala hall. points that avoided critical systems, points that a skilled team would use to infiltrate the station with minimal damage. These were not accidents. This was a plan. Boarding parties, Warlord Scrix growled. He turned to his soldiers. Kill them now. 200 Kraxan soldiers rushed toward the breach points. They were armed with the best weapons their species could build. They were trained killers who had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never lost a battle against any species. They had also never fought humans. The first Kraxan soldiers reached the breach point near the gala hall. The corridor was dark. Emergency lights flickered. Smoke drifted through the air. The Kraxan raised their weapons and moved forward carefully. Then they heard footsteps, not the quick, nervous steps of frightened prey, not the clicking march of their own kind. These footsteps were heavy, steady, confident. Something emerged from the smoke. It was tall. Taller than a Kraxan, but built differently. It was covered in light armor that left its arms and head exposed. Its skin was strange. Its eyes were forward-facing, like a predator. It walked upright on two legs, balanced perfectly despite the station's artificial gravity. It was smiling. "Hello, Captain Park," Juan said. "We are here to help." Then she raised her weapon and fired. The corridor exploded with light and sound. Plasma bolts flew in both directions. But the human moved differently. She did not hide. She did not retreat. She walked forward, firing with perfect accuracy. Each shot killed a Kraxan soldier. Each step brought her closer. The Kraxan shot back. They hit her twice. 3 times she did not fall. She did not even slow down. Behind her, 4 more figures emerged from the smoke. They moved in formation, covering each other, advancing like a wave of death. Their weapons roared. Their bodies ignored wounds that would have killed any other species in the gala hall. Ambassador Telvix watched the security feed with his mouth open. He had asked for humanitarian aid. He had hoped for negotiators, or perhaps soldiers who would demand the Kraxan surrender. Instead, he had gotten monsters, beautiful, terrifying, unstoppable monsters, and they were on his side. The crystal corridors of Luminar Prime had never seen violence. For 3,000 years, this station had been a place of peace. Delegates walked its halls and spoke of art and philosophy. Music played softly in every room. The walls glowed with gentle light. Now those walls were scorched with plasma fire. The gentle light flickered red with emergency warnings, and the music had been replaced by screams. Captain Park Jawan led her team through the station like a knife through flesh. They moved in perfect formation, each soldier covering the others. They did not rush. They did not panic. They walked at a steady pace, and everything that stood before them died. Contact Left Corporal No Sung said quietly. His voice was calm, as if he were describing the weather. 4 Kraxan soldiers appeared from a side corridor. They opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts filled the air with burning light. Lieutenant Yoon Tai-woo stepped forward. He was carrying a weapon that looked like a small cannon. 1 shot? 2 shots? The 4 Kraxan fell, their armor shattered, their bodies still. Claire Tai-woo said. He did not even sound tired. They kept moving in the gala hall. The delegates watched the security feeds in horrified silence. They had seen wars before. They had seen violence. But they had never seen anything like this. The humans moved differently than any species the delegates knew. They did not flinch from danger. They did not seek cover when fired upon. They walked directly into enemy fire and simply kept walking. Wounds that would have killed a Valoran in seconds barely slowed them down. "What are they made of?" Ambassador Telvix whispered. A Fenari scientist next to him was staring at her datapad. Her paws were shaking. "Their world," she said. "Earth, the gravity is 3 times ours. Their bones are incredibly dense. Their muscles are designed to move massive weight. They evolved to survive wounds and keep fighting because on their world, showing weakness meant death. They are predators," a Mithrani delegate said with horror. "No," the Fenari corrected. "They are survivors. The greatest survivors the galaxy has ever seen." On the screen, they watched Sergeant Buchanan take a direct plasma hit to her shoulder. The blast would have vaporized a Kraxan arm. Hannah grunted, looked at the wound for half a second, and then raised her weapon and killed the soldier who had shot her. She kept fighting as if nothing had happened. Behind the main force, Private Shinmira worked on a control panel. Her fingers moved across the alien interface with incredible speed. She had never seen Valoran technology before, but she had studied every known computer system in the galaxy. Within 60 seconds, she had broken through the encryption. "I have access to station systems," Myra announced over the team communication channel. "I can see the entire enemy deployment. There are approximately 300 Kraxan soldiers on the station. 200 are converging on our position. The remaining 100 are guarding the gala hall." "Can you broadcast to the enemy fleet?" Captain Jiwan asked. "Yes, Captain." "Do it. Let them see what is happening." Myra smiled. It was not a kind smile. With pleasure, across the Kraxan fleet, every screen suddenly showed the same image. They saw their elite soldiers dying. They saw 5 humans walking through their forces like adults walking through children. They saw weapons that should have killed bouncing off human bodies. They saw their comrades falling one by one. Warlord Scrix watched from the gala hall. His red eyes burned with fury. But for the first time, there was something else in those eyes. Something that looked like fear. "All soldiers converge on the invaders." He screamed into his communicator. "Kill them. Kill them all." Every Kraxan on the station rushed toward the humans. Corridors filled with armored soldiers. They came from every direction, hundreds of them. A wave of black shells and sharp claws and burning weapons. Captain Juan stopped walking. Her team formed a circle, facing outward. They had reached a central junction, where 5 corridors met. Enemies were coming from all 5 directions. "Taiwu," Guan said calmly. "Heavy suppression." Hannah sung, "Take the flanks." "Mira, watch our backs." Captain Taiwu said, "There are a lot of them." Yes, Juan agreed. "There are—" Then the Kraxan attacked. What happened next would become a legend. It would be recorded and studied by military scholars across the galaxy. It would be shown to soldiers and officers as an example of what a death world species could do when pushed to their limits. 5 humans held a position. Against 200 Kraxan soldiers for 11 minutes, Lieutenant Taiwu fired his heavy weapon until it overheated. Then he grabbed a piece of the station's decorative metal and used it as a club, smashing through Kraxan armor with pure physical strength. Sergeant Hannah took 7 wounds during the battle and did not stop fighting once. Corporal Sung disappeared into the shadows and reappeared behind enemy lines again and again, striking from darkness like a ghost. Private Myra used her hacking skills to turn the station's own defense systems against the attackers, activating emergency doors that crushed soldiers and releasing fire suppression systems that blinded them, and Captain Jiwan stood at the center of it all, directing the battle with perfect calm. She moved like water, dodging attacks and striking back with deadly precision. When her weapon ran out of ammunition, she picked up a Kraxan blade and kept fighting. After 11 minutes, there were no more enemies standing. The corridors around the junction were filled with Kraxan bodies. The walls were scorched. The floor was cracked. The air smelled of smoke and blood. The 5 humans stood in the center of the destruction, breathing hard but alive. Sergeant Hannah was already treating her wounds with quick, practiced movements. Lieutenant Taiwu leaned against a wall, his makeshift weapon bent and broken from use. Corporal Sung emerged from the shadows, cleaning his blade. Private Myra was typing on her datapad, already planning the next phase. Captain Jiwan looked at her team. "Status report." "Wounded but functional," Hannah said. "Ready for more?" Taiwu added. "The path to the gala hall is clear," Mira reported. "Only the guards around the hostages remain." Juan nodded. "Then we finish this." They walked toward the gala hall. Behind them, the cameras continued to broadcast. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the recording. They watched 5 humans walk through a small army and emerge victorious. And in the gala hall, Warlord Scrix watched his remaining 100 soldiers and knew that they would not be enough. Nothing would be enough. The doors to the gala hall began to open. The age of human isolation was over. The galaxy would learn what Earth's children could do, and they would never forget. The doors to the great gala hall slid open with a soft hiss. 4,000 alien delegates turned to look. What they saw would haunt their dreams for the rest of their lives. 5 humans stood in the doorway. Their armor was scorched and torn. Their skin was marked with wounds and burns. Blood dripped from cuts on their arms and faces, but they stood straight. They stood strong, and their eyes were the eyes of predators. Behind them, the corridor was filled with bodies. The crystal walls were black with smoke. The gentle blue light had been replaced by the red glow of fires that still burned. Warlord Scrix stepped forward. He was surrounded by his last 100 soldiers. They formed a wall between him and the hostages, their weapons raised and ready, but their hands were shaking. They had seen the broadcast. They had watched their comrades die. "You cannot win," Scrix said. His voice was steady, but there was a tremor underneath it. "I have 100 soldiers. You have 5. Captain Park Ji-won walked into the hall. Her team followed in perfect formation. She stopped 10 meters from the Kraxan line and looked at Scrix with calm, cold eyes. "You are correct," she said. "This is not fair. I recommend you surrender now, before more of your soldiers die for nothing." Scrix laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Surrender? 2 5 creatures from some unknown death world. The Kraxan do not surrender. We fight. We conquer. We win." "No," Ji-won said simply. "You did those things. Past tense. That time is over now." She raised her hand. Her team moved. What happened next lasted exactly 43 seconds. The delegates would later argue about the details. Some said the humans moved faster than their eyes could follow. Others said they saw every moment with terrible clarity. But all of them agreed on one thing. They had never seen anything so violent. And they had never seen anything so precise. Lieutenant Yoon Tai-woo charged directly into the center of the Kraxan formation. Soldiers tried to stop him. He grabbed 2 of them by their shells and threw them into their comrades. He punched through armor with his bare fists. He moved like a force of nature, unstoppable and merciless. Sergeant Beak Hannah moved along the left flank. She was smaller than Tai-woo, faster, deadlier. Her blade flashed in the red light. Every strike was perfect. Every enemy she touched fell and did not rise. Corporal No Sung was never where the enemies expected him to be. He appeared from shadows, struck, and vanished again. Soldiers spun around, firing at nothing while he attacked from behind. Private Shin Mira stayed at the back. Her datapad connected to the station's systems. She turned off lights to blind soldiers. She activated emergency bulkheads to separate groups. She made the station itself fight for the humans and Captain Park. Ji-won walked straight toward Warlord Scrix. Soldiers tried to stop her. She killed them without slowing down. Plasma bolts hit her body. She grunted, stumbled, and kept walking. Nothing could stop her. Nothing could even slow her. Scrix raised his own weapon, the finest plasma cannon the Kraxan had ever built. He fired directly at Ji-won's chest. The blast hit her. She fell to one knee. For a moment, there was silence. Then she stood up. Her armor was burning. Her chest was a ruin of scorched flesh and torn metal. But she stood up. She raised her sidearm, and she fired once. Warlord Scrix, conqueror of 20 worlds, fell dead at her feet. The remaining Kraxan soldiers dropped their weapons. They fell to their knees. They surrendered without another shot being fired. In the great gala hall, 4,000 delegates sat in stunned silence. The battle had lasted less than a minute. The entire Kraxan force was destroyed or captured, and the humans were still standing. Sergeant Hannah immediately moved toward the hostages. Her voice was gentle now, completely different from the cold killer of moments before. "Is anyone injured? Please stay calm. We are here to help. You are safe now." Lieutenant Tai-woo began lifting debris, clearing paths for the delegates to move safely. His hands, which had crushed armor and bone, now moved with careful precision to avoid hurting anyone. Private Mirror restored the station's systems. Lights returned to their gentle blue. Life support stabilized. Communications reopened. Corporal Sung disappeared, and when he returned, was carrying a terrified Finari child who had been separated from her parents during the attack. He delivered her to them without a word, then faded back into the shadows. Captain Juan stood before Ambassador Telvix. Her wounds were terrible. Blood soaked her uniform. She should have been dead 3 times over, but she stood straight and spoke clearly. Ambassador, your distress signal has been answered. The hostile force is neutralized. Your station is secure. Do you require any additional assistance? Talvix could not speak. He opened his mouth, closed it, and opened it again. Finally, words came out. You destroyed everything. The hall. The ceremony, you. We destroyed the enemy, Juan corrected gently. We protected the innocent. We answered your call for help. She tilted her head slightly. Is that not what you wanted? We asked for humanitarian aid. Guan looked confused for a moment. Then understanding crossed her face. Ah, I see the misunderstanding. On Earth, ambassador, humanitarian aid, and military response are the same thing. We protect people. Sometimes that means healing wounds. Sometimes that means providing food and shelter. And sometimes, she looked at the cracks and bodies scattered across the hall. Sometimes it means removing threats. Outside the station, the Kraxan fleet had begun to flee. They jumped into hyperspace one by one, abandoning their dead and wounded. Within an hour, not a single enemy ship remained. The broadcast of the battle spread across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched 5 humans defeat an army. They watched Deathworld soldiers shrug off wounds that would kill any other species. They watched monsters become saviors in the days that followed. Everything changed. The Valoran sovereignty formally requested a permanent human security presence. The Finari Collective asked for military training programs. The Mithrani Confederacy began negotiations for defense treaties, and the Kraxan Dominion. Once the terror of the outer sectors sent ambassadors to Earth begging for peace, they offered unconditional surrender. They offered territory. They offered anything the humans wanted. General Kang Do-yan received their ambassadors with a smile. It was the same cold smile he had worn when he first read the distress signal. You attacked innocent beings, he told them. You threatened to enslave and murder thousands. You thought the galaxy was weak. The Kraxan ambassadors trembled. Now you know the truth, Kang continued. The galaxy has protectors now. We are watching, and we do not forgive. Far away, in the crystal corridors of Luminor Prime, the reconstruction had begun. Human engineers worked alongside Valoran builders. Human medics treated alien patients. Human soldiers stood guard at every entrance, their eyes watching for any threat. And in the great gala hall, where the blood had been cleaned and the damage repaired, a new monument stood. It was a simple stone with 5 names carved into its surface. Not the names of the fallen. The names of the survivors. The names of the 5 humans who had come when called, fought against impossible odds, and saved 4,000 lives. Beneath the names, a single phrase had been carved in every known galactic language. They asked for help. We answered. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. When humanity offered aid, they meant it, and heaven help anyone who stood in their way.